Well, hello there, friends. Here we are again, midweek. I can hardly believe it, but it is true. And as usual, midweek for the past 9 weeks at least, we spend a few moments together talking about where we are going next. Or, what will the sermon be on Sunday? It's been a very interesting dilemma for me this week. Up until late yesterday, that's Tuesday, since we record on Wednesdays. I think you usually get this on Thursday or whenever you pick it up. Up until late yesterday, I did not know. I could not decide where we were going next. I had an outline, no detail. I knew we were coming to the next miracles in the Gospel of John. And there's 2 miracles in chapter 6 of John, which is the next chapter we're going to. And I knew that it would be one of those, and I knew I would have to choose, but I was not sure which miracle to choose, because I was only ever going to choose one of them for this week. Anyway, before we go there, I want to share with you how we're going to conclude Sunday morning. Yes, conclude. The final song, and I want to share the lyrics with you as we start tonight. I want you to think about it. I want you to come back and listen to these verses, these words again, and pray this prayer as your prayer as we head into Sunday. I would think that not many, if any of you, have heard these words before. It says, Lord, there are times when I have to ask, what? Times when your love is not easy to spot. What is life's purpose and what of me here? Grant me some answers, Lord. Make your will clear. Lord, there are times when I have to ask how. Times when what's preached doesn't square with life now. Wrestling with doubt, I ask, how can this be? Grant me some answers, Lord. Help me to see. Lord, there are times when the questions run fast, times when I fear that my faith might not last. Help me, support me. Lord, help me get through. Lead me through darkness till light shines anew. So that's where we're going into that prayer. What we've not established yet is by what means we will get there. So I want you to think about John's Gospel, chapter 6. That's the first step. This chapter is going to be your reading for the next few days. Or you have the opportunity to read this chapter over the next few days. There's a few things I want you to look out for in this chapter. First of all, the first miracle in this chapter is the feeding of the 5,000. It's found in all 4 Gospels with variations, but it's found here, John chapter 6, in the first 15 verses. Then there's a second miracle in this chapter. There's Jesus walking on the water in a storm. Now this one's interesting because it's found in 3 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and here in John. Very similar, but not to be confused with this story, is the story of Jesus stilling the storm, which is found in 3 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, but not in John. Then in John, starting in verse 20, or John chapter 6, verse 25, there's a very long discussion going right up to verse 59, where Jesus is talking about being the bread of life. And twice he says, I am the bread of life. And one time, in conclusion of this discourse, he says, I am the living bread of life. Now that discussion only happens in John. Then the concluding verses of chapter 6, also only happening in John, in this segment, in this grouping of stories, is we have John telling us that many of his disciples said, this is hard teaching. And many of them turned back and no longer followed him. This passage is so full of so many things that we could be kept busy studying for weeks, months, maybe more. But I just had to choose simply one of two miracles, because that's what we're looking at. The miracles of Jesus as accounted in the book of John. So these two miracles that are here, the feeding of the 5,000 and Jesus walking on the water, are so familiar, I think because the account is given in the other Gospels as well. And so we tend to mesh the stories together. And so we have this loving, tell me the stories of Jesus, and we get the facts all mixed up together. And they're interestingly staged in their telling for different purposes in the telling, in the writers, and where they're going with it. But in this Gospel of John, in chapter 6, both of these miracles have lots to teach us. Both have much to challenge us with, even if we think we know the story so well. Both, according to one commentator, this was part of my dilemma, both of them could lull the preacher into being easy and boring. Something he suggests no preacher should ever let happen. And further he says, we cannot let John's depth escape either us, the preacher, or the listeners. Well, rather than help, that just plunged me deeper into my dilemma. Bread or water? Bread or water? After much consideration, reading, plotting, pondering, after sifting again and again through facts and questions and possible conclusions, I have decided on which of the two to choose. It will be either the feeding of the 5,000, people get a meal that they weren't expecting, or Jesus shows up beside the boat in the middle of a storm, in the middle of a lake that is about 13 kilometers wide and 21 kilometers long. Either way is a pretty impressive story. It will be one of those two. Now you know where I'm going, don't you? Between now and Sunday, I'm going to suggest that you read John chapter 6. The whole thing, not just the two miracles. I want you to read it through. I want you to think, and I want you to pray. I would like you to think about which one is most important to you right now, the bread or the water. I want you to think about why you would choose that one. Why it matters to you right now. Do you know why it matters to you, or does just one of them appeal to you more than the other? And I'd like you to try and figure out which one I have chosen and why. And on Sunday morning at 10:30, come along and see if I get it right.